case number CIVDS 1112948. The plaintiff is present in court with counsel. Defense representative and counsel, Mr. Mader, are present. The witness is on the stand. Doctor, your oath to tell the truth continues. If you would state your name again for us.
Dr. Felice Gersch.
We've now been joined by Mr. Contos. You may continue, sir.
Your Honor. Now, you testified at your deposition that Carol Hahn had a lack of estrogen support for her tissues for many, many years. In fact, you said possibly decades. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
And I'd like to direct your attention to an exhibit 586. I think this is in, but it's 1153 to 1171. I'd move for its admission.
You have it, sir.
What are the pages again, please?
1153 to 1171.
All of this relates, Your Honor, to a June 11, 2010 Kaiser appointment of Carol Hahn.
No objection.
It'll be admitted if not already admitted.
I'd like to display 586, 1159. Take a look, doctor, under medications. Right there. You see that Carol Hahn was receiving, up until this point in time anyway, estradiol, 1 milligram. You see that? Do you see where I'm referring?
I see where it says estradiol. Yes, it says discontinue prescription.
Right, but it had been given to the witness for a period of time. It was discontinued with this report. My question to you is, isn't estradiol a form of supplemental estrogen for women?
Yes, it is.
And you didn't know that Carol Hahn was taking supplemental estrogen up until July or June 11th, 2010, when you stated she had a lack of estrogen, did you?
No, but that's not physiologic estrogen.
Move to strike the last portion as non-responsive again.
Everything after no is stricken, the jury is disregarded.
Now, I take it you didn't investigate to see what type of statements that Carol Hahn made after August 2nd, 2010 to see whether or not she might have said something that might be consistent with her being sexually assaulted. You didn't undertake that analysis, did you?
No.
I'd like to show you an exhibit 51292 through 99. It's been previously admitted. And I'd like to display 5121093. It's dated August 7, 2012, which would be 5 days after the incident on August 2nd.
So you initially said 51292 through 99, so it's really 1092.
It's 1092 through 1099 is the whole exhibit. The page I want to show, Your Honor, is 1093.
Thank you. Go ahead.
No objection.
Okay, if you see here, if you look under describe, it says patient very agitated, repeated phrases in loud voice. I won't let you do it. No, I can't. You weren't aware that Ms. Hahn made that statement on August 7, 2012, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Let's take a look at 5121120, which is part of 5121119 through 1127. I believe it's been admitted, but if not, I'd move for its admission.
You have it, sir.
I do. No objection.
Not already admitted. It's admitted.
And if you go down to the same section, it says patient yells. And this one's dated also August 7th.
1119.
Patient yells, get out of here. Let me die. I'm all right. I'm not well. when any attempts are made to perform ADLs, hygiene, changing of clothes, repetitive verbalizations, very agitated. And then at the bottom it says, patient stated, you get out of here, complied with patient request. You weren't aware that 5 days after Ms. Hahn presented to Kaiser that she made those statements in the presence of a caregiver, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Let's take a look at 512-689, which is part of an exhibit which consists of 512-684 to 692. I believe it's been admitted. If not, I would move for its admission.
No objection.
Do you want all the pages?
Yes.
Yes. 689, if you go down, ma'am. The author at VDOS writes that Carol Hahn states in rapid, loud, repetitive fashion phrases, let me go. I haven't seen anything that makes me happy. I can't stand it anymore. I'm so tired. You weren't aware that those statements were made by Carol Hahn on August 22nd, which is 20 days after the Kaiser incident, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Let's go next to 512-695 through 703. Move for admission. I think it's in, but I'll move for admission if it's not.
You have it, sir?
I do, no objection.
And I'd like to display 512-700, Your Honor, for the witness.
Go ahead.
In this case, patient was verbal with phrases, I won't put up with this. Make him quit. I don't want him ever, 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 ever again. I don't want you up here. Get me out of here. You were not aware that on August 23rd, the day after August 22nd, which is the note we showed you, Carol Hahn again made statements of this nature to a VTOS or to a caregiver, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Let's go to 512-707 through 715. And specifically, I would move for admission of that if it's not already admitted.
You have it, sir?
I do, no objection.
I'd like to display 512-709, which states, Candy Hall verbalized, Carol is getting worse. I used to be able to calm her down with redirection, such as coloring or other activities. She used to listen to me when she was agitated, and I could calm her down with talking to her. And then the author writes on, patient calling out, I don't want this, repeatedly during morning care was delivered by staff. Became agitated when transferred to Jerry's care. You weren't aware of this note when you conducted your analysis as to the possibility of a sexual assault occurring on August 2nd, 2012, correct?
Correct.
You weren't aware that LVN Candy Hall noted that after August 2nd, 2012, Carol Hahn is getting worse in terms of her agitation, correct?
I had not read these notes.
Okay, let me see. Let me show you, this one is 512-804 through 813. Move for admission if it's not already in.
No objection.
I'd like to
804
direct-
through 813 are admitted at
I'd like to
512.
direct you, Dr. Gersch, to 512-805, please. Says, periods of agitation continue with patient evidencing crying, attempting to get out of bed, restlessness, throwing pillows, yelling out repeatedly, get out, to VITAS and facility staff, as reported by VITAS ICC staff. You weren't aware of that note either, were you?
No, I had not read that.
Okay. And I've got two more for you. This one's 5/12/825 through 8/34. I think it's in, but I'll move for its admission if it's not.
No objection.
Be admitted. If
Let's
not,
go
I'll
to,
leave it.
sorry, Your Honor.
That's okay.
I'll go to 5/12/827, and I'd like to show you a note, Dr. Gersch, which, this is on page 3 of 10, regarding discussions with Dr. Jukaku. It says, discussion with Dr. Jukaku regarding patient's continued aversion to anyone near her in her room, agitation with most requests. You weren't aware that Carol Hahn had an aversion to anyone being near her in her room on September 5th, 2012, which was about a month and 3 days after the Kaiser incident, correct?
Not read these notes.
Okay. Let's go to 5/86/1660. I think you might have read that one.
You have it, sir?
And this one is dated, I think it's been admitted, Your Honor, but if not, I'll move for its admission. I'm
No objection.
virtually positive it's in. Let's display that. And this was likely one of the notes you read because it's from, if we can go to the date, it's from August 2nd, 2012, or August, should I say 3rd?
It's like 3rd.
August 3rd, 2012. Do you remember if you read the notes from Kaiser the day after August 2nd, 2012 as part of your engagement?
Your Honor, I would mischaracterize the document. The admission date is different than the discharge date.
Oh, I apologize. I think Mr. Mayor's correct. Do you know if you read this note as part of your engagement?
This looks familiar.
Okay. If you look under pelvic exam, and let's see, who wrote this note? Looks like Joe M. Casillas, MD. Do you know who that is?
I think he's from the ER.
Okay. And he writes, when I began examining patient began to scream loudly, "Stop touching me. Stop, stop, stop." Patient began to kick and flail, and did not allow continued exam. Were you aware that at the time the ER physicians tried to examine Carol Hahn to gather physical evidence, that she yelled at them to stop and began to kick and say flail, and did not allow them to examine the interior of her vagina?
Yes.
Okay. And you would agree that the statements that were made by Ms. Hahn after 8/2 for a period of about a month are all consistent with someone who does not want to be touched, and specifically does not want to be touched by a man, correct?
I can't agree to that completely, no.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the money. So as I understand it, you got $3,000 as a retainer, right?
I believe so, yes.
And as of the time you were deposed, you had billed $14,125 on this case, correct?
Actually, I don't know.
Well, let's take a look. If I can refer you to your deposition, actually, I'd just like to read this, Your Honor. Actually, if I may approach, I'd like to show the witness Exhibit 3 to her deposition, which is her billing statements.
Have it?
I do.
Okay.
And I'll bring you a little Post-it to help you out. If you could take a look at your billing statements as of the time of the deposition, which start here at Exhibit 3, page 1, could you tell us what the total amount was that you had billed as of the time you were deposed for this engagement?
Mr. Haney.
I don't see that.
You need to, like, add this and then turn the page, and then there'll be another bill, and then if you keep turning pages, all your bills are there. You gave them to us at your deposition.
Okay. Okay, so the way that I read this is that it was under 6,000, and then there was the cost of the deposition itself.
How much was that?
The deposition was 3,200, I think.
Can I have that back? Thank you for that.
Sure.
So that'd be around 9 or 10,000. Correct?
So it would be, yeah, close to, yeah, between 9 and 10.
And I think you testified that you're going to bill Mr. Mader $5,000 just for coming here today, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And for reviewing records, you bill out at about $550 an hour?
Correct.
And for testifying, you get about $800 an hour?
In that neighborhood.
Just a little higher for trial?
Correct.
What is it for trial? What do you get per hour for coming down and testifying today per hour?
It's by the half day.
Okay, so if you testify, let's see, it's 11:30, so if we get you out of here at noon, 3 hours, $5,000, it works out to be well over $1,000 an hour, about $1,500 an hour, right?
If you think of it as time on the stand, correct.
Okay. You bill your travel separate, or is that included in the 5?
It's typically included in the 5, unless it goes way over that.
Did you meet with Mr. Mader or Mr. Contos to prepare yourself for testifying today?
We just spoke I spoke with Mr. Mader briefly on the phone
When did you do that?
a few days ago.
How about when the 3 of you just went back into the jury room on the break? What did you talk about?
I only spoke with Mr. Mader, and
Wasn't Mr. Contos in the room?
he was in for a second. I didn't talk to him.
Yeah, what did you say to Mr. Mader?
He said that I was doing well, and I could use the bathroom that was right there, and that he would address the issues that he felt he needed to address when he did his re-examination.
Now, you've been sued for medical malpractice twice, right?
Correct.
Once in the 80s, correct?
Right.
One of your patients sued you,
That's correct.
and you basically paid her off and settled the case, right?
Well,
It's argumentative is phrased.
You ultimately paid money to settle that case, correct?
I did.
Maybe terms of confidentiality with regard to that, Your Honor.
Sustained, but only as to the form of your question.
Okay. That case was settled, correct?
I did settle it, yes.
Okay, and it was settled on a basis where you paid money, correct?
Again, confidentiality, Your Honor.
There's no name on the plaintiff's side here.
Well, there's sufficient.
Excuse me. Overruled. You may answer. Was it settled financially?
Yes, my malpractice carrier took care of the charge.
Okay, and in 2010, you got sued again by one of your patients, right?
That's correct.
Julie, right?
Correct.
And you settled that one too, right?
I did.
And Julie got money too, right?
Yes.
Now, with respect to this visit to Kaiser, do you recall how long Carol Hahn was at Kaiser on the August 2nd visit?
It was a few hours. I don't remember the exact number.
Can you give us an estimate from your recollection, or do you not know?
You know, it's not one of the things I focused on. I remember it was a few hours because she was there for a few different doctor shifts.
Let me show the witness, Your Honor, 586-1643. It's been admitted.
No objection.
Go ahead.
You look, if we zoom in here a little bit, you see the admission time for Carol Hahn at Kaiser was 3:44 p.m.
Yes.
And let's see what time she was discharged, if we can go down. 3:35 a.m. So does that refresh your recollection? She was at Kaiser for about 12 hours.
Well, I knew she was there for a number of hours. It wasn't critical to my making my opinion exactly how many hours.
Did you know as long as 12 hours?
Quite a few hours.
And the service that was provided, according to this form, is emergency medicine, correct?
That's by definition what an emergency room does.
Okay. So you would not categorize Carol Hahn being taken to Kaiser for 12 hours as a non-emergency medical appointment, would you?
The problem she had was not an emergency. They took her there, as many people go to emergency rooms for non-emergency care.
Do you know if she made an appointment to go to Kaiser or not?
It's my understanding they just took her to the ER, but I don't know if there were any calls made. I don't know about that.
And do you have any quarrel with the characterization of her visit here being under where it says ADM type being an emergency?
It was not an emergency, but there are a lot of people that use the emergency rooms for non-emergency care.
Okay. Let me show you a document. It's been marked as 60-1. It's been admitted.
You have it, sir.
I do.
Go ahead.
Objection.
Go ahead.
This is a letter from Mindy Martin's attorney, David Colella, to Miss Alvarado
Outside the scope, Your Honor.
at Wildwood Canyon Villa. And I'd like to zoom in a little bit so I can read it.
Overruled. You may go ahead.
This office provides representation to Mindy Martin, temporary conservator of the person and estate of Carol J. Hahn. Mrs. Martin, by her acknowledgement below, is authorizing Wildwood Canyon Villa to disclose to Linda Kincaid
Slower, mister.
Martin Blood or Clara Gibbs that Carol Hahn is not currently at the premises because she is at a non-emergency medical appointment. You see that?
Yes.
Do you believe that's an accurate characterization of where Ms. Hahn was on August 2nd on a non-emergency medical appointment?
Lacks foundation, form.
Overruled. Based upon what you know from your review so far, Doctor, you can answer the question.
Well, everything I read, her if you're talking, there's no date on this, but assuming this is referring to August 2nd, I already said I do not believe that her medical situation was truly an emergency.
Did you see anything in the documentation you looked at that indicated she had an appointment scheduled?
Well, people don't make appointments in emergency rooms, so that, no.
And she did go to the emergency room on August 2nd. In fact, if we scroll up,
Asked and answered, Your Honor.
scroll up, please. You said this, there's no date on it. Do you see August 2nd, 2012?
Yes,
One last question. I asked you previously about the cup of blood. Do you remember that?
yes,
And you told me 4 ounces. Do you recall that?
that's, yeah, correct.
You sure a cup of blood isn't 8 ounces?
Well, first off, when people say a cup, they're not actually measuring the blood coming out of someone. There's actually often incredible inconsistencies with what people think there is and what there actually is. Cups are, I think a cup, I thought a cup was 4 ounces. If I'm wrong, then that's my measurement.
You're familiar with the term cup being used as a term of measurement, correct?
A cup?
Yes.
Yes.
And a cup is 8 ounces, isn't it?
Well, I thought a cup was 4 ounces. I don't know what she thought. You know, a cup, you know, when people say a cup, they're thinking of like a teacup.
No further questions, Your Honor. Now, when you testified at your deposition, I'm hoping I can do this without having to read the whole answer because your answer's quite long. So I'll try to do that. You testified that when Ms. Hahn presented at Kaiser on August 2nd, 2012, there was a little bit of bleeding. Do you recall that?
I believe that's what the records had stated.
Okay. And you also testified that the bleeding that was seen did not appear to be vaginal bleeding. Correct? I'd like to show you, where is it? One second. You're gonna have to drop that call. We're gonna have to put this on the Elmo. Which I have absolutely no idea how to use. Okay, so this is a record from Kaiser Permanente, and you see the. You put it this way? No.
I'm zooming out.
Sorry, Your Honor, this is the new screen. The date of the document is August 2nd. Something
Hold
happened
on.
to our brightness.
The videographer's not going to... Can you make that out, sir? Go ahead.
Can we lose the brightness? And do you see under patient presents with that the Kaiser individual who filled this out wrote vaginal bleeding? You see that?
I do.
Now, just to make sure I understand your testimony, I want it to be clear. To your knowledge, none of the Kaiser emergency room doctors or Dr. Barrett, who was the gynecologist who saw Ms. Hahn that evening or during that 12-hour period, did anything to your knowledge and based on your review of the records to remove the mass, correct?
Asked and answered.
One last time. You may answer that.
They did not.
Okay. And before Ms. Hahn presented at Kaiser, there was some bleeding. You remember that from the document I showed you, correct?
There was.
And after Ms. Hahn left Kaiser and the doctors did nothing to the mass, the bleeding stopped, right?
It stopped initially, yes.
And then there was the next day where there was the cup of bleeding, right?
Asked and answered.
Correct? I'm just summarizing here.
Overruled, you're going to be summarizing at 1:30.
I'm literally one question away.
Okay. You may answer.
Yes.
But after that cup of bleeding, you're not aware of any more bleeding as a result of the mass, correct?
I'm not aware of more.
Okay, that's it, Your Honor.
Thank you. No questions?
Doctor, I cannot formally excuse you from further attendance at the trial. If it is necessary for you to come back, it would be upon reasonable notice. So you must keep the attorneys apprised of your whereabouts, and if asked to come back, you must do so, but on that, you may go about your business. Thank you.
Gotcha.